I want you to stop, like, whatever you are doing for just a second and answer a question for me. And, be totally honest with yourself here. What is the exact dollar amount that would make you never work again?
Oh, that is the ultimate question, isn't it?
Right. Seriously, I want you to picture that number in your head right now. Is it like 5 million, 10 million, maybe 100 million?
Everyone's got a number.
Exactly. So you got it. Okay, well, I am here to tell you that the number you are picturing is probably a total lie.
A complete mirage, yeah.
Yeah. And the reason it's a lie is, well, it's going to challenge literally everything you have ever been taught about success and ambition and, what it actually means to be free.
It really is the most pervasive lie in our modern culture. I mean, we treat that number like a finish line, right? We just assume that once we cross it, we unlock some permanent state of zen.
Like the clouds part and angels sing or something?
Exactly. But when you actually examine the psychology of high achievers or, the macroeconomic structure of our society, and especially the rapidly accelerating capabilities of technology, you realize that the finish line just doesn't exist.
It's totally fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people who actually cross it, they almost never stop running. So today, we are taking a deep dive into why that happens. And more importantly, how we can completely rewire our understanding of human value before the choice to work is just taken out of our hands entirely.
And that's the part that really, shifts the ground beneath your feet, I think. We aren't just looking at standard personal finance today. We are taking this stack of source materials and bringing the raw mechanics of the tech economy with something totally unexpected.
Right, ancient Eastern philosophies.
Yeah, Eastern storytelling and philosophies of contentment. It's this wild synthesis that you just rarely encounter anywhere else.
Because, most conversations about the future of work, they focus entirely on the tech, right?
Yeah.
How to build the AI systems, how to retrain the workforce.
The logistics of it all.
Right. Almost no one is asking what happens to the human soul when this economic treadmill we've been running on for 300 years is just suddenly turned off.
It's a terrifying question because, asking that forces us to confront this massive void. Like, if you strip away our job titles and our output and our net worth, most of us literally don't know who we are.
We have no idea.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. To understand why that void is so frightening, we have to start by looking at why we're all working so intensely in the first place. We have to look at the mechanics of the exit number.
The cultural holy grail.
Yes. The FU money. I mean, the myth we see in movies is always the same, right? It's this single lottery-sized windfall. You hit the number, you buy a private island, you throw your smartphone into the ocean.
And you just drink from a coconut for the next 50 years.
Exactly. But when you actually break down the financial math and, human psychology, this absolute destination just crumbles almost immediately.
It crumbles because it relies on a completely static universe. And, neither the universe nor the human brain is static.
Right, things change.
Constantly. The island number myth assumes that once you hit, say, $10 million, the world just freezes in place. But in reality, you have macroeconomic forces like inflation just silently eroding your purchasing power every single day.
It's invisible, but it's always there.
Yeah. And then you have market volatility. I mean, a portfolio that looks totally indestructible during a 10-year bull run.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly looks incredibly fragile during a sustained correction.
Exactly. But honestly, the biggest variable isn't even the market. It's the person managing the money.
It's the lifestyle creep.
Yes.
It's this insidious way our baseline for what feels normal just shifts upward the second our income increases.
Precisely. Because, if you're earning $50,000 a year, a $10 million windfall seems practically infinite. But if you're earning $2 million a year and you're moving in circles with people who own private jets and multiple estates,
$10 million suddenly feels like couch change.
It barely feels like a safety net. The goalposts are just constantly moving. As people earn more, their desires scale to meet and, often exceed their new capacity.
Which is exactly why the mythical island number is just a mathematical illusion. True financial freedom isn't about acquiring luxury at all. It is about acquiring autonomy.
And we really need to explore that distinction because I think it fundamentally changes how people should view their bank accounts.
Let's do it. So, if luxury is the ability to buy whatever you want, autonomy is the ability to say no to whatever you don't want to do.
Right.
It's about having a shield against coercion.
A shield, exactly. And that shield is built in stages. There is an entire spectrum of freedom, which our sources break down into 3 very distinct tiers of autonomy.
And understanding these tiers is so crucial because it takes this abstract, overwhelming goal of infinite wealth and breaks it down into actionable psychological shifts for you. So let's look at the first stage. This is what we might call the buffer, or, in more colloquial terms, F this job money.
Right. And this is essentially having 6 to 12 months of living expenses just sitting in a highly liquid, accessible account.
Which on paper just sounds like basic financial hygiene, like emergency fund 101.
It does. But the psychological leverage it provides is absolutely enormous. It fundamentally alters your posture in the world.
Oh, for sure.
Because when you operate without a buffer, you're basically working from a place of desperation. Every interaction with a difficult manager, every unreasonable demand from a client, it carries this implicit threat of ruin.
Right. You tolerate the toxicity because you literally need the next paycheck to pay the mortgage.
Exactly. But the moment you secure that 12-month buffer, you undergo this profound psychological shift. I mean, you haven't bought a yacht, you haven't retired, but you have bought immunity from sudden shocks.
I love that framing. Like, imagine walking into a one-on-one performance review with a notoriously toxic boss.
Oh, a nightmare scenario.
It's a total nightmare. If you have zero savings, your heart rate is elevated, you are defensive, you're basically in survival mode. But if you have a year of living expenses in cash, you can just sit back in the chair and listen objectively.
Yeah, you're bulletproof.
You really are. If the environment becomes abusive, you possess the power to simply stand up, resign on the spot, and walk out the door, knowing you'll be perfectly fine for an entire year while you look for a better team. You've purchased the freedom to reject immediate coercion.
That is the essence of Tier 1. It is pure defense. Tier 2, however, shifts from defense to a kind of structural liberation. This is often referred to in the sources as Coast-FI or the pivot.
Okay, this one is mathematically fascinating to me. It's this tipping point where your existing investment portfolio, let's say a diversified mix of global equities and index funds, has reached a critical mass.
Right.
It's grown large enough that even if you never contribute another single dollar to it, the historical compounding returns will guarantee a fully funded retirement by the time you reach your 60s.
The heavy lifting of your financial life is just done, complete. And the implications for your daily existence here are staggering.
Tell me about it.
Because your future self is mathematically secured by compounding interest, right? You no longer have to optimize your current career for maximum income. You're no longer frantically shoveling money into a 401k or a brokerage account every month.
You only need to earn exactly what you burn today.
Exactly. You only have to cover the present.
So, like, if your current lifestyle costs $60,000 a year, you just need to find a way to make $60,000. You don't need $150,000 to max out all those savings vehicles.
Right, which completely shatters the traditional career trajectory. It allows you to downshift. We see this with, high-intensity professionals, corporate lawyers, investment bankers, tech executives who hit this Coast-FI number in their 30s or 40s.
And they just wake up and realize they don't need the brutal 60-hour weeks anymore.
Yeah, they can take a lower stress role. Maybe they pivot into teaching or consult part-time or work at a nonprofit. They are coasting. They still rely on a paycheck for today's groceries. But that suffocating anxiety of securing their old age is just evaporated.
Wow. Which brings us to the final stage, Tier 3. Total financial independence. The absolute holy grail. This is the core of the whole FIRE movement, right? Financial independence, retire early.
Yeah. At this tier, the portfolio is so substantial that the passive income, whether that's dividend yields, real estate cash flow, or a safe withdrawal rate of roughly 3 to 4%, it just covers your desired lifestyle indefinitely.
Without depleting the principal.
Exactly. Work goes from being mandatory to being completely optional.
So if you wake up and decide to take on a consulting project, it is strictly because you find the intellectual challenge stimulating. Or, I don't know, if you decide to spend 6 months learning how to build wooden boats in your garage, you can do that too.
You have achieved total sovereignty over your time.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here because this is where the theory hits a massive brick wall in the real world.
Oh, absolutely.
Because let's look at the people who actually hit that Tier 3 number.
Yeah.
We all know them or we read about them in the news. The tech founder who sells their Series B startup for $20 million. The partner at the law firm who has amassed a $50 million portfolio.
Right.
They have hit the mathematical absolute. Their safe withdrawal rate could fund a phenomenal life for them and their grandchildren. But they don't stop. They don't go build wooden boats.
No, they definitely...
They start another company. They take on a more stressful board position. They grind even harder than they did when they were broke. So if this is all just a math equation, why does the math fail to change their behavior? I mean, It's like a treadmill where the speed just keeps increasing every time you get comfortable.
It's because you are assuming they are operating as rational economic actors. And as we know, human beings rarely do. This is the trap of the absolute number. Yeah. It goes back to that lifestyle creep we discussed at the very beginning, but at a much more sophisticated level. The math of Tier 3 relies entirely on one uncompromising rule: your burn rate must remain static.
And keeping desire static goes against literally every biological impulse we have.
Exactly. Imagine your portfolio has an incredible year, right? And it generates an extra $100,000 in passive income. Rationally, you are now further past the finish line. You have a wider margin of safety.
You should be relaxing more.
Right. But what actually happens, you look at that extra $100,000 and you think, I can finally afford the vacation home. Or I can upgrade to first class on every single flight. Suddenly, your baseline expenses surge by $150,000.
Oh, wow. So even though you made more money, you are actually moving backward. You are financially poorer in terms of autonomy because your structural overhead just expanded. The treadmill just sped up.
Exactly. The wealth grows, but the structural complexity of the lifestyle outpaces it. And this dynamic, it doesn't stop. It scales all the way up to the absolute extreme of human wealth. Which brings us to a really fascinating macro-level concept from our sources, the billionaire's paradox.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. This is where we transition from the anxiety of personal finance into the realm of, like, global power dynamics.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Because if keeping desire static is the secret to getting off the treadmill, what happens to the people who scale up to the absolute limit? I'm talking about the wealthiest people in human history. Do they finally achieve the ultimate autonomy? Do they get to answer to no one?
Well, there has been a very sharp cultural observation recently regarding this exact question. You see it in the cultural zeitgeist, with TV commentators and late-night hosts pointing out this glaring contradiction.
Right.
We have these ultra-wealthy tech billionaires who control platforms used by billions of people. They possess more concentrated wealth than the GDP of many sovereign nations. They can literally sway markets with a single post online.
They seem untouchable.
They do, and yet when a political figure, a head of state, demands they bend the knee, they do it. They show up to the hearings, they comply with the regulatory demands, they play the geopolitical game.
And just to be super clear for you listening, we are looking at this purely through the lens of leverage and power dynamics here.
Yeah.
This is completely separate from any partisan politics. We aren't taking sides. It's just an objective exploration of economic versus sovereign power.
Exactly. It's about the mechanics of power.
Because the question is, why does someone with $200 billion bow to a politician who makes $200,000 a year? They have infinite money. Why isn't that money enough to buy absolute immunity?
Because money and sovereign power are two entirely different currencies, and one ultimately supersedes the other.
Interesting.
Yeah, money is incredibly effective at buying freedom from economic coercion. It buys you out of a bad job, it buys you best health care, it buys you private security, but money does not buy immunity from the state. The state possesses a monopoly on force and the authority to write the law.
Right. A head of state commands the military, the tax authorities, the antitrust divisions.
Exactly. No matter how many billions are sitting in a corporate treasury, a regulatory body can just rewrite the trade laws of an entire industry overnight. A government can block a massive acquisition, break up a monopoly, or levy fines that totally cripple a business model.
Wow.
And this is the core of the billionaire's trap. When you amass that level of wealth, your money is no longer just sitting in a passive index fund. It is inextricably tied up in sprawling, massive empires. It's tied to supply chains, labor forces, and global infrastructure.
This is the paradox of scale. The bigger you get, the more vulnerable you become. I mean, think about a regular professional who has quietly amassed, say, $4 million in a Vanguard fund. They live in a nice house in the suburbs. Their wealth is what we might call quiet money.
And quiet money is incredibly liberating.
Right. The quiet millionaire can genuinely disappear. They can wake up on a Tuesday, decide to spend the entire day reading historical biographies, and the government doesn't care. The antitrust division doesn't care what they do.
No one cares.
But if you are the CEO of a trillion-dollar tech monopoly, your wealth is the loudest money on earth.
It is deafening.
Deafening. Your net worth is entirely dependent on market sentiment, on securing government contracts, on navigating international tariffs. You can't just disappear and read a book on a Tuesday.
You really can't.
To protect that massive empire, You are forced into the arena. You are forced to lobby, to negotiate, to appease political factions. You aren't bowing to political pressure because you need a paycheck to eat. You are doing it to protect your trillion-dollar market cap from being dismantled by the stroke of a regulatory pen.
Which means the quiet millionaire actually has significantly more day-to-day autonomy than the billionaire. The billionaire is a prisoner of their own scale. As your financial footprint expands, the surface area you expose to sovereign power just expands right along with it. In the absolute terms of global power, there is always a bigger fish.
Always. It's a wild irony. The people who win the capitalist game at the absolute highest level are actually the most trapped by it. Absolute FU money just doesn't exist.
It really doesn't.
But okay, this leads to a massive contradiction. If the billionaires are trapped, and the quiet millionaire is the one who actually gets to experience freedom, why doesn't our culture glorify the quiet millionaire? Why don't these high achievers just take their winnings, cash out, and go home?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
There's a brilliant phrase in the sources for this, shut up money. Why isn't shut up money the freedom to simply disappear into your own life and exist entirely on your own terms, the ultimate goal for everyone?
It's the logical conclusion, isn't it? Take the money, shut up, and go live your life. In financial circles, this is sometimes called stealth wealth.
Stealth wealth, right?
But it completely fails to take hold as the dominant cultural narrative for two very powerful reasons. And the first is macroeconomic and media-driven.
Contentment doesn't generate clicks.
Exactly. Contentment is entirely invisible. Think about the architecture of our modern media, our social networks, and our entertainment industry. They are fueled exclusively by engagement, conflict, spectacle, and constant updates. If a successful founder quietly sells their mid-sized tech company, buys a comfortable home near a lake, and spends the next 40 years walking their dog, reading philosophy, and gardening, that is a fundamentally unnewsworthy event.
You definitely can't build a reality show around a guy reading a book on a porch.
You really can't. You can't sell magazines, you can't drive algorithm engagement, and you can't build a personal brand around someone who is perfectly content in doing absolutely nothing of public consequence.
It's boring to the observer.
Exactly. And on a macroeconomic level, modern consumerism requires a baseline of perpetual dissatisfaction. Our entire economic engine relies on the premise that enough is always just slightly out of reach.
So true.
If society began to actively glorify the idea of hitting a specific financial number and then permanently checking out of the consumer cycle, massive sectors of the economy would just collapse.
Oh, for sure. The luxury goods market, the high-end real estate sector, the entire industry built around status symbols, they all depend on people never shutting up and never being satisfied.
The economy needs you to stay on the treadmill. But, the second reason people don't take the shut up money is entirely internal. It's psychological.
Okay, let's dig into that.
For the highly successful people who refuse to step off the wheel, they are battling three really powerful psychological traps. And the first is the scoreboard effect.
Which happens when money stops being a tool and starts being a metric. Because for, 99% of the population, money has pure utility. You use it to buy shelter, calories, transportation, medical care.
Right. But once you cross a certain threshold, let's say $100 million, the utility of money basically drops to zero. There is literally nothing you can purchase that will materially improve your day-to-day physical experience of life.
Yeah, like a $300 million net worth does not buy a softer mattress or more nutritious food than a $100 million net worth.
It doesn't. At that extreme level, money is just abstracted into points on a global scoreboard. They aren't working 80-hour weeks because they need a bigger yacht. They're working to ensure their net worth ranks higher than their rivals on the Forbes list.
It just becomes a game of pure ego, which feeds right into the second trap you mentioned, the hedonic treadmill. We touched on this with lifestyle creep, but the biology of it is just fascinating.
It really is. Human beings are biologically wired for adaptation. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism.
Right.
When you achieve a massive goal, you sell your company, you get a massive promotion, you buy the dream house, your brain releases a massive surge of dopamine. It feels euphoric.
The best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your neurochemistry is designed to quickly metabolize that dopamine and return you to a baseline state. What was once an unimaginable luxury rapidly degrades into your new, boring normal.
So to get that same euphoric high again, the next stimulus has to be exponentially larger. The first million feels amazing. The second million feels okay. By the 10th million, you barely even register it. You need 50 million just to feel a pulse. It is a literal biochemical treadmill.
And if you run on that treadmill long enough, you inevitably hit the third, honestly most tragic trapping, the loss of identity.
This is the one that really terrifies people, I think. Imagine the day in the life of a hyper-successful founder who finally cashes out. For 20 years, their entire existence has been a blur of high-stakes decisions, crisis management, outmaneuvering competitors.
Pure adrenaline.
Yes. They sell the company for $1 billion. They wake up on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m.
And the phone doesn't ring?
Exactly. There are no Slack messages. There are no fires to put out. There is no board of directors demanding answers. For the first time in 2 decades, they are met with absolute silence, and the silence is deafening.
Because for people who spend their lives building world-shifting empires, the act of building is their identity. They don't have a self outside of their output.
Wow.
If you tell them to take their shut-up money, sit on a beach, and just observe life, it sounds like a prison sentence to them. They are terrified of the void.
They literally do not know how to exist without a crisis to solve or an industry to disrupt.
Right. The very traits that propelled them to the top, the obsessive drive, the paranoia, the extreme competitiveness, are the exact same traits that make it impossible for them to ever experience peace. They don't take the shut-up money because they fundamentally do not know how to shut up.
They won the game, but the game consumed their soul in the process. It's almost like we're running on a faulty smartphone operating system. We have biological hardware and societal software, and both are just fundamentally corrupted when it comes to generating lasting happiness.
I like that analogy. Let's break down that architecture. How does the hardware fail us?
Well, the biological hardware is our evolutionary programming from the Pleistocene epoch. Back then, if an early human ate a big meal, felt totally satisfied, and decided to just, chill out by the fire and observe life for a month, they died.
Right, they starved.
They got outcompeted, or they starved when the winter came, or they got eaten by the anxious, paranoid humans who were constantly worrying about hoarding their next meal. We are the descendants of the anxious humans.
But we inherited the anxiety.
Exactly. Our brains evolved a dopamine feedback loop that specifically rewards the chase, not the catch. We are hardwired to never be satisfied because satisfaction used to mean death. Once you catch the gazelle or the $1 million, the dopamine drops, creating this empty void that forces you back out to hunt. That is the faulty hardware.
It's a profound evolutionary mismatch. We're navigating an era of unprecedented modern abundance using hardware designed for extreme scarcity.
Yeah.
And the societal software only exacerbates the problem.
Right. The societal software is the conditioning we receive from the moment we are born. You're placed on a conveyor belt of metrics. In childhood, you're graded with letters and numbers. A high GPA equals parental approval and social safety.
In young adulthood, you're ranked by university prestige and starting salaries.
And by adulthood, you're measured by your job title, your square footage, your portfolio size. We are explicitly programmed to view ourselves as projects that require constant upgrading.
And because both the biological hardware and the societal software demand endless output, anyone who actually attempts to step off the wheel faces immense friction. I mean, if you tell the world, I am perfectly happy with exactly who I am and what I have right now, and I have no desire to achieve anything further, society literally does not know how to process you.
People get genuinely angry. They label you as lazy or complacent or lacking ambition.
Because we measure human worth entirely by output. Actually, choosing to be content isn't just rare. It's an act of profound psychological rebellion.
Wow, an act of rebellion.
To step off the wheel requires actively unlearning decades of conditioning. You have to be completely comfortable with the world looking at you and assuming you've lost your edge.
It's rebellion through stillness. And if our biology and our software make it so incredibly difficult to achieve this, what does it actually look like when someone manages to pull it off? We really have to look outside of Western capitalism to find a compelling model for this. There's a story from Eastern pop culture in the sources that perfectly illustrates this kind of rebellion. It's a story narrated by the acclaimed Telugu film director Trivikram.
It is a stunning piece of storytelling. It acts as the ultimate antidote to everything we just discussed about the billionaire's trap and the faulty operating system.
So Trivikram describes a simple man living near a river in a small village in southern India. And the story isn't about an adventure or a conquest. It is entirely about his routine.
Just his daily life.
Yeah, he wakes up early in the morning, he goes down to the river to bathe. He comes back, performs his prayers, and asks his wife to cook. They sit down and eat together, and then he rests.
He rests.
He doesn't open a laptop. He doesn't check the markets. He doesn't try to optimize his afternoon. In the late afternoon, he goes to the local temple, perhaps participates in some bhajans, some devotional singing. In the evening, he meets up with his friends under a tree. They talk, they laugh, they share stories. He goes back home, eats dinner with his wife, and they go to sleep before the night gets completely dark.
Yeah.
And here is the profound part. He does this every single day for 40 years.
40 years.
He commits no grand mistakes. He leaves no trail of destruction. He does no harm to anyone. And he eventually dies a quiet, peaceful death.
When you lay it out bare like that, to the modern ear, it sounds almost offensively mundane.
It really does. I mean, I think the immediate reaction from a Western hyper-ambitious mindset is what a waste of a life. From a modern economic standpoint, this guy's a total failure.
Right.
He produced zero scalable value. He didn't disrupt any industries. He didn't build generational wealth. He didn't leave a legacy of innovation. Isn't this just a complete lack of ambition? Why should we...
Because we've been thoroughly conditioned to only recognize one type of hero, the hero of conquest.
The conqueror.
The person who forces the world to bend to their will. The tech founder who disrupts an industry. The billionaire who builds a rocket. The general who wins the war. But this man by the river represents a completely different paradigm. He is the hero of restraint.
The hero of restraint. Explain the mechanics of that, because it sounds like an oxymoron to me.
Think about the monumental difficulty of what he achieved over those 40 years. To live day in and day out and do absolutely no harm. When you're endlessly chasing achievement, climbing ladders, scaling empires, collateral damage is virtually guaranteed.
Oh, absolutely.
You exploit a subordinate's time, you neglect your spouse, you ruthlessly undercut a competitor, you compromise your own ethics to hit a quarterly target. To live 4 decades without leaving a wake of destruction, without letting your ego dictate a single action, requires immense, almost unfathomable emotional intelligence.
It's not just sitting around.
No, it is an active, exhausting, daily choice to choose peace over pride.
And think about the psychological warfare he had to survive to maintain that routine. For 40 years, he definitely saw his neighbors build bigger houses. He saw friends move to the city and acquire wealth. He saw people gain political power in the village. But he just woke up the next day, went to the river, and laughed with his friends without a single drop of bitterness or envy. He completely defined his own sense of enough.
He defeated the hedonic treadmill. He achieved exactly what the billionaires cannot achieve. He refused to let anyone else's success make his own life feel inadequate.
That is so powerful. It actually reminds me of the classic parable of the investment banker and the fisherman. It hits the exact same philosophical note.
Oh, that's a perfect parallel.
Right. So an American investment banker is on vacation in a small coastal village and meets a local fisherman. The fisherman works for a few hours in the morning, catches enough to feed his family, plays with his kids in the afternoon, takes a siesta with his wife, and drinks wine with his friends, playing guitar into the night.
A perfectly optimized life of contentment.
Exactly. But the banker, looking at it through the lens of the production era, says, "You are wasting your potential. You need to work harder. You catch more fish. You buy a second boat, then a fleet of boats. You build a massive enterprise. Cut out the middleman. Move to the city. Take the company public, and you'll make millions."
And the fisherman asks the crucial question, and then what?
And the banker says, "Then you can retire to a coastal village. Sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, and spend time with your friends and family."
It is the ultimate illusion of the deferred life.
Yes.
The billionaire in our earlier discussion is grinding their life away, sacrificing their physical health, their youth, and their peace of mind, all in the desperate hope of one day earning the permission to do exactly what the man by the river is already doing today.
It's absurd when you put it like that.
The billionaire needs extreme luck, high intelligence, and ruthlessness to win their game. The man by the river only needs profound wisdom. He takes the permission without asking.
He bypassed the entire agonizing multi-decade journey and just skipped straight to the end. But if this philosophy of restraint and contentment is so demonstrably powerful, why isn't it taught? I mean, when Trivikram told that story, the audience erupted in applause. It was a revelation to them. Why are we so starved for this concept?
This points to a severe critique of our educational infrastructure found in the sources. The way we are trained to exist in the world fundamentally opposes this philosophy.
Right.
Take the example of traditional schooling, say a prestigious missionary school like St. Mary's mentioned in the materials, or really any modern educational institution. Schools are incredibly efficient at teaching mechanics. They teach mathematics, sciences, languages, history. They even teach moral science.
But the moral science they teach is highly specific, isn't it? It teaches you how to be a good participant within the system. It teaches you not to lie, not to steal, to be polite to authority, to be a productive citizen. It does not teach you the philosophy of the man by the river. It doesn't teach you how to simply be.
Because contentment is the fundamental enemy of an economy that relies on infinite growth. We have to look at the history here. The modern school system was architected during the Industrial Revolution. Its primary, unstated goal was to take agrarian children and mold them into reliable, ambitious factory workers and voracious consumers.
That makes total sense.
The school bell mimics the factory whistle. The compartmentalization of subjects trains the brain for assembly line tasks.
And the grading system is basically the prototype for the corporate performance review.
Exactly. When you spend your entire developmental window being trained to optimize, to seek the next grade, the next gold star, the next promotion, your brain is functioning exactly as the system intended. If schools actually taught children that they could be perfectly happy living a simple, expectation-free life without buying the newest car or climbing the corporate ladder, the economic engine of the nation would stall out.
It would crash.
A society of deeply content people does not consume endlessly. Therefore, contentment is heavily discouraged in the curriculum.
It's like we are only taught how to struggle. Think of it like learning how to swim. If you panic in the water, if you tense up your muscles and thrash your arms around trying to force buoyancy, what happens? You exhaust yourself, you swallow water, and you pull yourself under.
Right.
To actually float, you have to do the exact opposite. You have to stop fighting. You have to relax your body, surrender to the water, and simply let it hold you. Contentment is the absence of effort. It is the art of floating.
I love that metaphor. And schools only teach furious upstream swimming. They train you how to thrash efficiently. They cannot teach floating because you cannot grade floating, you cannot measure it on a standardized test, and you certainly cannot put it on a resume.
You can't put expert at sitting quietly by a river on your LinkedIn profile. The algorithms would reject it.
Precisely. And this leads to a fascinating nuance in Eastern philosophy that the sources bring up. We often associate extreme contentment with ascetics like the yogis who practice sannyasa or total renunciation in places like Varanasi.
The people who leave society entirely, they give up their possessions, go to a cave or an ashram, and meditate.
They remove themselves from the temptations of society to achieve a state of enlightenment. They escape the system. But the man in Trivikram's story is not an ascetic. He is a granasta, a householder.
Right.
He has a wife, he enjoys a good meal, he has a community of friends, he hasn't run away to a cave. He is living directly in the middle of society, surrounded by people who are likely striving and struggling, yet he remains completely untangled from their anxieties.
He is in the world, but not of the world.
And many philosophers argue that this is significantly harder than being a yogi who lives in isolation. To live in the middle of a consumer-driven society, to have a family, and still have the quiet, monumental strength to not fall into the trap of comparing your life to your neighbors, that is a stunning achievement. It requires an ironclad sense of self.
It is the ultimate flex, honestly. But, up until this very moment in human history, choosing to be the man by the river has been just that, a choice. It was an optional spiritual path for those who felt burned out by the rat race. But the tectonic plates of our economy are shifting right now.
Rapidly.
Artificial intelligence is about to take this philosophy of contentment and turn it from an optional lifestyle into a mandatory survival skill. So what does this all mean for us?
This is the architectural inevitability we are facing. Due to the rapid, exponential advancement of hyperautomation, large language models, and AI, human labor is on a permanent, mathematically guaranteed downward trajectory.
It's happening.
For centuries, humans had a monopoly on cognitive labor. We were the only machines capable of doing the upstream swimming. That monopoly is ending.
And the panic is definitely starting to set in.
Yeah.
Economists at institutions like the National Bureau of Economic Research are beginning to sound the alarm on what they call the severance problem.
The severance problem. This is the psychological crisis that occurs when you sever a human being from their economic utility. We discussed how our biological hardware and societal software program us to derive our self-worth, our identity, and our dopamine from our output. We are fundamentally a society of doers.
So what happens to the psyche of a doer when there's absolutely nothing left to do? When a server farm can write the code, diagnose the patient, draft the legal brief, and optimize the supply chain better, faster, and cheaper than a human ever could.
That is the terrifying void.
The common economic band-aid everyone throws around is universal basic income, UBI. Give everyone a baseline salary so they don't starve when the robots take the jobs. And some people are looking at concepts like Japanese ikigai, finding your personal reason for being as a way to cope with the shift.
But UBI fundamentally misunderstands the depth of the crisis. UBI will solve the economic problem of starvation, sure, but it will do absolutely nothing to solve the psychological problem of meaning. If you introduce UBI without fundamentally rewiring society to embrace the philosophy of contentment, the philosophy of the man by the river, we are going to face a catastrophic global crisis of meaning.
Because we will have created a world full of unemployed doers.
Exactly. Picture millions of highly educated, hyper-ambitious people who have been conditioned their entire lives to run on a treadmill. Suddenly, the power to the treadmill is permanently turned off and they are handed a government check.
They won't know what to do with themselves.
They won't know how to stand still, they will panic, they will fall into deep depression, or worse, destructive behaviors, because the only metric of value they were ever taught, their productive output, has been permanently taken away from them.
This represents a massive historical shift. We are transitioning out of the production era and crossing the threshold into what we can call the observer era. Let's break down the architecture of these two areas because this framework changes how you view everything. Let's start with the production era, which basically encompasses the entire history of human civilization up to this exact moment.
Right. In the production era, the core equation of existence is simple. Human value equals output. Your goal as a human being is to optimize, to manipulate the physical and digital world, to build, to solve problems.
To be useful.
To be useful. Your time is entirely spent producing. And the ultimate achievement in this era is the accumulation of wealth and status.
Which perfectly explains why the billionaire is trapped. They're the ultimate winners of the production era, but they're prisoners to the mechanics of output. But as AI handles more and more of the production, as the machines take over the optimization of the world, we are forced into the observer era.
In the observer era, that core equation completely flips. Human value no longer equals output. Human value equals experience. Your primary goal is no longer to optimize the world, but to observe it, to understand it, and to feel it.
Wow.
Your time is spent contemplating rather than producing, and the ultimate achievement is no longer status, but deep, unshakable contentment.
AI is acting as the ultimate forcing function here. It's forcing humanity to figure out what actually makes us human, because it is stripping away everything that doesn't.
Exactly. Think about the fundamental limitations of science and artificial intelligence. Science is an incredible tool for mechanics. It can map the neural pathways of a brain. It can measure gravitational waves. It can train a neural network to write a symphony or solve protein folding.
It's brilliant at the how.
But it cannot explain subjective experience. It cannot explain the hard problem of consciousness, why it actually feels like something to be alive. Science can tell you the exact chemical composition of a cup of coffee, the thermal dynamics of the heat transfer, and the neurological response of caffeine binding to your adenosine receptors.
But it cannot experience the quiet comfort of drinking it on a crisp morning.
That is the exclusive domain of the observer. If machines can build the house, solve the math, and write the code, then our humanity doesn't reside in our ability to perform tasks. We aren't human because we can calculate or produce. Our humanity resides in our ability to sit by the river, listen to the water flowing, laugh with our friends, and actually feel the profound subjective experience of being alive.
If humanity can successfully navigate this transition, and it will be an incredibly painful transition, if we can shift our educational systems, our cultural software, and our economic incentives to embrace the observer era, we might finally unlock the collective free time and mental bandwidth to explore the deepest mysteries of existence.
Freed from the anxiety of basic survival and the exhausting endless race for status, human intelligence could pivot entirely toward philosophy, art, deep interpersonal connection, and truly understanding the nature of consciousness itself.
The man by the river wasn't a failure. He wasn't behind the times. He was thousands of years ahead of us. He had already mastered the observer era, while the rest of us were still furiously, desperately swimming upstream in the dying days of the production era.
It is a stunning reversal of how we measure a successful life.
It really is. So let's bring this entire journey full circle for you. We started by looking at the intense anxiety of achieving that absolute exit number, the FU money that is supposed to buy our freedom. We quickly realized that the absolute destination doesn't exist, and that even the billionaires, the ultimate winners of the financial game, are hopelessly trapped by their own loud money, vulnerable to sovereign power, and unable to stop running on the biological hedonic treadmill.
Right, they're stuck.
We uncovered the hardware and the societal software that keeps us all furiously swimming upstream, terrified of being seen as lacking ambition, terrified of the silence that comes when we stop producing.
And we found the antidote in the most unlikely place. A simple, quiet story of a man living by a river who achieved the monumental, exhausting task of living 40 years without letting ego, envy, or the desire for scale destroy his peace. A true hero of restraint.
A philosophy that we must now rapidly adopt, not just for our own spiritual peace, but as a mandatory survival skill as artificial intelligence takes over our traditional roles as the producers of the world. You don't need $1 billion to step off the wheel. You don't need permission from a bank account to stop thrashing in the water, and you don't need to wait for an AI jobs apocalypse to force you into the observer era.
You just need the courage to stop running.
You need the courage to look at the treadmill, recognize the game for what it is, and simply step off. Before we go, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over today. Imagine that tomorrow morning you wake up and every single metric of your success, your job title, your responsibilities, the amount in your bank account, your endless, exhausting to-do list was instantly erased by a machine that could do it all better, faster, and without complaint. If all of your output was suddenly rendered obsolete, who would you be when you sat down to drink your morning coffee? Are you capable of just observing the steam rise and feeling the warmth of the mug? Or would you still be desperately looking for a way to optimize the cup?